Good morning. Welcome to Plot Character Voice, where I'm Gary Snodgrass, and I am a independent author, and I want to talk about why certain aspects of stories resonate. Not so much which, but why. I'll be going into plot today, mostly to cover the 5 different basic plots that I narrow things down to: romance, mystery, thriller, horror, coming of age. And in my previous episodes, I've talked about these and why I think every story has one basic question at it, one primary question. Will they get together? Will they solve the murder? Will they save the universe, the world, the community? Will they survive the night? Or will they grow up enough and lose their innocence so they are willing to sacrifice themselves for the greater good? And as I've talked to before, those 5 plots are not the same thing as genre. Genres are based upon place, time, situation. So you can have a romance that's in historical, the Old West. You can have a romance in contemporary China. You can have a romance that's paranormal, or a romance that's young adults, or that's a romance that's contemporary. All of those different things. So you've got your 5 plots, and you've got all your genres. Talked about that before. Plot is a series of events that an author uses to create an emotion, along with characters and voice. And they create the emotion to make the story significant and relevant. If it's not significant and relevant, if there is no emotion, then the reader doesn't care, isn't going to finish the story, and isn't going to remember anything that they learn. So we create stories to create emotions so that the information has an impact. That is a biological function of being a human. We survive because we process things via story. And perhaps the biggest plot of those 5 is romance. Couple little facts about romance. 80% of romance novels are read by women. I'm probably going to get in trouble in this video talking about this, but I believe that there are differences between men and women. Yes, granted, the majority, we are the same, but there are biological differences: physical, emotional, mental. Even though intelligence levels there's no difference over the spectrum, there is differences on the extremes. But the way we process information is subtly different. Not better, not worse, different. And it comes down to priorities, I really think. Women are more interested in people. Men are more interested in things, on the wide spectrum. Not everybody, it's not totally separate, but if you look at the averages over a long period of time, there is some differences. So 80% of romances are read by women, so therefore the romances are more geared towards women. So therefore the expectations and tropes need to take that into account. And why there's a difference is why romances resonate with women, or the aspects of romances that resonate, and why those aspects resonate, need to be taken into account. If there was no difference, then it'd be 50-50, right? But if there is a difference, there has to be a reason, and it can't all just be cultural. It's there is some biological differences, and don't forget our primary aspect: survival of self, survival of the species. Those are embedded and buried in the animal part of us. Okay, they were there before we became human, and they're there now. So, if the key is to survival of self and survival of the species, and actually, in some ways, it's survival of the self so that you can have survival of the species. If that's your primary goal, your biological driver, then the mate of your that results in your children is of critical importance. Maybe the most critical thing that you will ever do. Who you have your children with is perhaps the most important decision event of your life. I mean, you got where you live, what job you do, who you marry. I would say who you marry in the long run is of the most importance. It's the most importance to your happiness. It's the most importance to the survival and well-being of your children. It's the most importance of your longevity. All of those type of things. So, at its core, romance is dealing with that issue. Okay? When it comes to a couple of other facts about romance, like I said, 80% are read by women. The most important factor for choosing which book to read is the type of hero. This is studies have been proven. Women have choose which romance book to read based upon the hero. So it's not a self-identification with the heroine. It's a desire to be emotionally attached to the hero, the protagonist, or one of the protagonists. So when a person of usually 80% women chooses which romance to read, their first and top criteria is the type of hero. Fact, okay? When men choose to read romance, and some do, I write romance, I write everything else also, but from a reader aspect, the men don't choose it based upon the heroine. They choose it based upon the situation, okay? And quite often view themselves as being the hero, the male protagonist. Different reasons for reading romance between men and women. Again, I'm talking generally over a big, wide spectrum. So when it comes to choosing your hero to put in your book, a couple things to keep in mind. One, and this is going to get me in trouble. No young girl lays in bed at night dreaming about her future husband and imagining and hoping that he's shorter, poorer, dumber, and less brave than her. Okay? She's always, almost always, imagining somebody who is bigger, wealthier, stronger, braver, and a great provider and protector. Why? Well, obviously because her children, that's best for her children. The better provider, the better protector, the better chance her children have to survive. Now, this is at a biological level. They have shown that women are naturally, across all cultures, attracted to men that are taller than them. Why? And I say naturally, I mean at the biological, physical level, on a general, wide spectrum basis. And it's because they view, again at the biological level, that bigger means protector, a better protector. This is critical to the survival of their children. Even, like I said, even before we were what we are today. And this is a common, if not the majority of the cases in the animal kingdom as well. I mean, this bigger and stronger males get to mate with the females. Why? Provide protection, provide more stronger genetics. Okay, and this resonates at the emotional level, and it's a critical aspect of your plot. Okay, the male has to show social dominance, social status, which correlates to being better to provide and protect. He normally needs to show physical attributes that indicate that he is a strong male, the masculine aspects, bravery. Just think, I mean, all of their typical romances. So just keep that in the back of your mind. Now then, in my view, there are two types of romances. There's what I call the Cinderella and the Beauty and the Beast. Every romance falls into one of those two categories. And here's my reasoning. In the Cinderella romance story, the conflict is external to the relationship. In Cinderella, the conflict is, will the prince find her? Will he discover the truth about her? That she's a poor maid. Will she be able to survive in his world? It's external to the relationship between them. She likes him and he likes her and everybody knows it. That's not the issue. The issue is, will they get together or will external things keep them apart? That's the Cinderella story. The Beauty and the Beast story, the conflict is between them. There might be external things also, but the primary conflict is between them. The beast. Will she be able to tame him? Will she be able to make him socially and civilized? Because the greatest thing for a woman is a tame beast. He can protect her, and the love for her tames him. So you've got those two type of romances. Now then, the tropes inside of them can be the same or different depending upon how you want to do the story. For instance, in both of them, the trope is that the male protagonist is bigger and stronger and more socially higher on the ladder. But the interaction tropes could be different. You could have, in a Cinderella story, fish out of water, rival families, misinterpretation of status or identity, all external things keeping them apart. Those tropes might not work inside of Beauty and the Beast because they're not the issue. The issue is the conflict between them. The sparks, the antagonism to change. Okay? You see this in a lot of novels or stories where the male protagonist starts out as not wanting to be monogamous, not wanting to respect women, not wanting to sacrifice his perceived happiness for somebody else. And it's only when he falls in love that he realizes that there are some things that are worth sacrificing for. That trope wouldn't work over in Cinderella, because in the Cinderella, the issue isn't between the two of them. The issue is the outside, dealing with the outside conflict. Okay, so those are your two tropes, or your two plots, basic plots for romance. Why? Always going to be coming back to why. As I said earlier, majority of readers are women. Women need or want, at a biological level, protector and provider. Okay? Keep that in mind. When you are developing your plot, you have to have the male protagonist demonstrate his ability to provide and protect. That's what draws her to him. It's the overcoming of the conflicts, the external conflicts, that demonstrate that. Okay? There's also the plot of almost every romance is boy gets girl, boy loses girl, boy gets girl. Why? Why isn't it just boy gets girl? It's the boy losing the girl that creates the low point in the story, and it's overcoming that demonstrates his value to her and helps prove the rightness of the situation. If boy just gets girl and there is no conflict, then, like I said before, it's an anecdote, not a story, but it also doesn't show his value. It also doesn't show hers. Okay? And this is a critical point too, is that the romance can't be just one side. When you write a romance, it really works best if you write it in two different POVs, his and hers. And women love reading romance from a male POV. Because it's very important for them to understand or try to get into a man's head and understand what he's thinking. Because romance is so critical to them. I mean, it's critical to all of us, but it's of major importance to them. Who their mate is going to be is probably one of the most important decisions and things that's going to ever happen to them. And so they are driven to view the world through that question. And you'll hear terms like my book boyfriend. Well, I love that character, that male character. Oh, there's actual, as I said before, actual chemicals are released in the brain when you're reading a good romance novel that is similar to or the exact same as chemicals released when you're falling in love. Those first 6 months of a relationship, that giddy feeling, even if you're 40, you feel like you're 16. Those chemicals are addictive. This is why romance readers read so many books, okay? It's the addictive chemicals in the brain. And the plot has to show the male character providing and protecting. Now, you could start out with a prince who's got all the money in the world, or it can start out with a high school boy who has nothing. And it's a demonstration of his being able to provide and protect, or the potential to provide and protect, okay? That drives the romance. It's only through that interaction, the woman learning, the female character learning that. And for my romance novels, I'm going female and male because that's what I know. And I'm not saying that all uh, romance novels have to be that way. But it's the idea of people changing to come together. If they stayed the same, if there was no conflict and there was no change, they would never get together. It's overcoming the conflict between themselves or externally that brings them together. So, a couple of things for the plot. One, you have to figure out a reason why these two people are going to be in the same space long enough to fall in love. Yes, I understand instant love and all this stuff, but you still need a reason for them to be in the same place. Two people trapped in an elevator. Two people going to the same school. Two people running away from the cops. Whatever. There's a reason for them to be together. That's part of your plot. Then inside that reason, there's an opportunity for the male character to demonstrate his ability to provide and protect. Okay? I feel that it works also better if there is a reason for them not to get together right away, so they have to overcome that. That's the external side of things. Or the internal things. I can't stand him, he drives me crazy. Pride and Prejudice is a perfect example. Only the more time they spend together, that eventually overcomes. Or the more they learn the truth. Shakespeare was great about this with misdirection and misunderstanding and misidentity and all these type of things as reasons why they didn't get together right away. By creating the conflict and something to overcome, it changes them enough to where they can get together. Again, why? It is only through growth as a person that we change, bad or good. And if we don't change, then we can't accept somebody else. Because we were static, we were fine yesterday, why would we change? So, women are looking for provide and protect at the gut level, at the biological level. And don't forget, that's what we're going for, okay? Emotions are at the biological level. You release chemicals in your brain with each different emotion. Dopamines and all the other ones. You have to connect with those to achieve an emotion. Alright? Just providing information does not release chemicals. You have to connect at that gut level, at that biological level, to get those emotions released, or to get those chemicals released. And it's the release of those chemicals that impacts memory and impacts the importance of what you're reading and doing. So, women are looking for men that provide and protect. Men, on the other hand, are looking for health, sexual health, or health and loyalty. They want, at the biological level, they're attracted to women who appear healthy and able to have children. One step above that is the concept of trust. Is the child going to be his? And is he going to have to worry about her fidelity? And those are important to a man at a gut level. He doesn't want to spend resources and time raising some other man's child. I mean, biologically, that's the case. And two, if he has to worry about her fidelity, that puts him at physical risk. Is he going to have to continually challenge other men to uh, retain sexual availability? Yes, it's her choice, but is she the type of person who's going to constantly choose somebody else? If that's the case, why would he expend the resources? So the trust is very important at the biological level. And I don't think a lot of men think about it or talk about it. And I'm not talking about social um, or religious or theoretical. I'm talking about at the gut level, okay? Especially in a monogamous relationships. So, healthy, able to have children appear to be, and then there's the quality of what kind of mother is she going to be? Intelligent, caring, nurturing, all of those type of things. Again, that's not social. It's at the gut level. It really is. Um, Granted, a man might have sex whenever he can and is able to. But falling in love is based on different criteria. It's both the um, sexual health, the potential mother incapabilities, and the trust factors. Okay? So that's your main character. But you have to put in your plot situations that demonstrate that. Description. Okay? Um, a situation where you see her interacting in a caring, nurturing way. A situation where she chooses him over something else, where she's on his side. Those situations need to be in the plot. The situations where he protects her, provides, and demonstrates his ability. Competence is very, very important, or the potential competence are very, very important. Um, a lot of these can be demonstrated in typical, excuse me, I will try and fix that when I come in later on. A lot of these can be demonstrated, this is a typical, the billionaire, the high school, or the kindergarten teacher. Okay? She's moving up, but she's demonstrated her beauty and trust and caring capability. But there are some other options. You could have the option of where the man is not very wealthy at the moment, and and the woman is a princess, figuratively or literally, doesn't matter. Okay, she's high social status. The only way for her in the plot, for her to end up with him, is for him to have a higher social status. And if she's a princess, there isn't anybody, right? But you can do it via heroics, via bravery, via him demonstrating his value through heroics. An example, you've got the princess, she's on a trip across the country in a carriage or a car, doesn't matter, whatever, blah, blah, blah. Wealthy father, she's running away from wealthy father. Or she's just on a regular trip, doesn't matter. Drifter, cowboy, rescues her from a fate worse than death. Then rescues her again. There are sparks between them because they are so opposite. But it is his value as a hero that raises him up enough to where she can be attracted to him. Okay? Now imagine the same situation. Princess goes running across country, and car breaks down, tow truck shows up, and it's a 40-year-old bald man who doesn't know how to fix the car and has no value to her. There's not going to be any sparks. So the plot is that he has to be of value, either wealth, bravery, competence, something that makes her feel that he is of a higher status. So your plot is that the boy meets girl. I mean, there's always going to be the meet cute. That's an important aspect of the plot because it's the unusualness of that sets the tone for the rest of the relationship. They go through whatever kind of scenarios they're going to go through as they get to learn about each other. There's either sparks internally or sparks externally. Just before they admit, or just after they admit that they want to be together, something happens that separates them. If the sparks are external, something on the external story separates them. If the sparks are internal, it's an internal reason why they separate. I can't be with you because of X, Y, and Z, or this will never work because of X, Y, and Z. Then the rest of the story is the solving the X, Y, and Z so that they can be together. That's it. That's all a romance is. And at the end, a happy ending. A love story without a happy ending is not a romance. It's a tragedy, or it's a love story. It's not a romance. People read romance for that happy ending, for that chemical release in their brain. Okay? And believe me, or they get upset when they don't get it. There's no problem writing a story where there's not a happy ending. I'm not saying that. But don't label it a romance, or you will piss off a lot of people. Okay, so that's your basic romance story. Is the hero needs to have value that is higher than the heroine in her perceived ideas. There needs to be either external or internal conflict, or both, but there's a primary. The question is, will these people get together? The next question is, what is stopping them from getting together? Internal conflict, external conflict, both. But if it's both, one of them should be a little bit higher than the other. And how do these people overcome that conflict? What changes do they make in the situation and in the characters themselves that drive the plot so that they can get together? Okay? I'm just talking basic romance. What we all know and hope for. And as I've said, the reason this is important is in the biological level, which is what we're driving for on our emotionals, is that everybody is driven to survive and survive of a species. If that was not true, we wouldn't be here today. Okay? If survival of the species is of critical importance, then the well-being of our children is the most important question, the most important issue we'll ever deal with. And if that's the case, selection of our mate is the most important, or is important. So, we are driven to have a situation that is best for our children. And to do that, a mate that loves and cares for us improves that. a mate that meets our criteria, even our biological sub-criteria of a man provide and protect, and a woman trust, health, mothering of the children. At a biological level, when we see that, we connect with it. We understand at a gut level what the situation is and how important it is. Then we add conflict, and to see that conflict overcome creates the emotion. Okay? When we get into characters later on, I'll talk about how important it is to care for a character. But what I'm trying to talk about on the plot issue is you could have the you could have the greatest character ever. But if there's no conflict for them to overcome, there's no ability to care about his success or her success. So you need to, in your plot, you need to have the conflict either external, that's trying to stop them getting together, or internal, for them to overcome, or a combination of both. And that conflict will have a bunch of different tropes, which we'll get into later. But it needs to focus on the overcoming of the conflict and the two people coming to realize that they are better together than they are apart. You need to have a low point. Either the boy loses girl or girl loses boy, and then have them working to overcome that situation. And boy could lose girl because of external reasons. She's kidnapped and taken away. Or internal reasons, they can't see eye to eye and they'll never get together. As a good portion of the book is them overcoming that. Okay? I mean, that's your basic romance plot. But the reason is at a biological level. That it's so... People might deny it, but I've written a lot of books and I've talked to a lot of people. And at the core, the readers want to be in love, or want to feel like they are in love, and want the couples to struggle and overcome. Because that's what they want in their own life. Okay? They want to be in love. They want to overcome life's problems. They want to see somebody doing what they want. They want to see somebody achieving which at biological gut level they need. Okay? Everybody needs. We can overwrite our biological and psychological needs. We can rise above them. But there is a biological need to survive and a biological need to procreate in a majority of people. And if you're going to procreate, you want a good spouse, a good mate. Fact. Right? That's what's going on inside of a person when they're reading a romance novel. They want to see somebody winning the right mate, overcoming life's problems, and living happily ever after. That's it. Thank you. We'll talk some more later. Bye-bye.